So, I was never supposed to sit in this seat. I'm the middle son of kind of like blue collar workers. I tell this story because this is the 21st anniversary of deciding to even go to law school and decide to take the LSAT, which I did October 31st. So I went to Shippensburg University for undergrad. I did computer science, and I was working for NAVSEA, Naval Sea Logistics, and I was working, man, it was awful. If I could just say, it was just terrible. They didn't want, like, I don't know. They didn't want me there. I didn't want to be there. I didn't even want to go to. I didn't even want to do computer science as a degree. And my buddy from high school, who was my best friend and had been through college, my best friend, had been trying to convince me to go to law school for some couple of years. And so I'm driving back to Shippensburg University from Camp Hill on Halloween night of 2003. And I called him up on what was undoubtedly I think it was probably a Samsung flip phone. It's like the face of it. It's like one generation after that old Nokia, that everyone talks about. It's just like it's like the little teeny tiny brick that everyone had for like 5 years at that point in time. And so driving back to Shippensburg, I call this cat and I'm like, man, what's this law school thing? I don't think I can do what I'm doing. He says, Charlie, it's too late. I was like, what do you mean it's too late? He said, well, I mean, you got to take the LSAT. I was like, what's the LSAT? He says, kind of like the SAT, but for law, like the law SAT. That's kind of the way to think about it. I said, okay, I didn't study for the SAT either. I did just fine. He said, he said, man, I took a $2,500 Kaplan class, right? And I was in Shippensburg, and he was here in Richmond at the time because he went to undergrad at University of Richmond. And so I said, fuck it. I said, I'm going to drive down to Richmond. We'll just do it. Man, I went through hell that year. Like, that was my senior year of college, man. I had some like really terrible personal things happen to me that year. It was like I had to like withdraw from a class because there were like some things going on in my personal life that just were not good. And I was having trouble dealing with them. And that's actually when I first started taking antidepressants. And so I was dealing with that stuff. And so hated what I was doing with computer science at this internship at NAVSEA. And so I came down here to Richmond, and he gave me his Kaplan books and discussed with me that it's important that I perhaps do some of the practice tests. I mean, and keep in mind, this is my senior year of computer science. So I recall, I think I was taking software engineering 2, data structures, file structures. Like, I was taking 400 level computer science courses, like the design and analysis of algorithms, and studying for the LSAT, of which I didn't know I was going to take. All of that being said, I ended up making it into University of Richmond the next semester. Meanwhile, I was potentially going to try out for the Houston Grand Opera because I also sang. And so someone had heard me do some solo work and said, you could be at the Houston Grand Opera. You want to send some arias. Meanwhile, I break my leg in a car accident in February, and I end up just kind of accidentally going to law school because it was the easiest thing. I know that sounds ridiculous. And so I did 3 years of law school, passed the bar exam, and fell into criminal defense because the economy was in the shitter and you couldn't get a job. So it's been a long time of thinking about what that looks like and how that happened and whether I would have preferred to do other things. But I will tell you right now, I would say probably 5 years ago or so, like in 2016, I recall applying for the director of Richmond City Parks and Recreation. That's how much I was dissatisfied with my job. And now I am here where I am with the Holistic Law Studios. I have Inch Law, which is my law office. I've got Trauma Underground, which I'm trying to build out as a network of peer recovery and support for people that are dealing with what the traumatic effects are of the life that we live and the society in which we live. And I will tell you that I would rather be nowhere but here, right now, doing what I'm doing, in the seat that I am doing it, with all of the trials and tribulations that are in front of me right now. I've doubled my overhead for my law office within the past month, and I'm just, like leaning in, like healing the identity that you have for yourself, that you don't deserve it, that you can't do it, or that other people don't want to work with you. And really, at the end of everything, what I would tell, what like I'm coming to my kind of recognized intention is that the opposite of a traumatized mind is a mind that is curious. That's it. Being curious and not making assumptions. Anytime that you think that you have an assumption, anytime that you think you have more knowledge than the other person, is the moment ego steps in. It's usually based off of a prior experience. Now you're bringing the prior experience to this experience. And so for me, my personal experience, when I recognize old me popping up, it's usually when I think that I know something and have any sort of assumption. So, I feel like everyone's kind of here in my living room here. I built this table, and I, designed all of this to kind of have a place to feel comfortable and want people in my living room to talk about real world shit. And so I thank anyone right now that's here listening to this. That's what the purpose of this is. Like, how do we be more human in a society that feels less connected and less accepting than any experience that everyone talks about has ever experienced? So thank you for being here. I look forward to having you back.